No, I
She
really
can be
do.
on there. I'll go on the other side.
All right, we live, everyone. Welcome again to our family recovery support group. And my name is Craig, and I have two lovely guests here today. And if they don't mind introducing their first name, we'll go from there.
I'm Sherry.
And I'm Michelle.
We have Sherry and Michelle. And so today we're going to bring everyone a very interesting article dealing with family. So this article is brought to us by AbbeyCareFoundation.com. You can go online and retrieve this article. And so today's title is Step-by-Step Guide to Rebuild Relationships During Rehabilitation and Recovery. This is our recovery support group. And so I'm going to begin, and then we'll go from there. And this article starts off by saying addiction doesn't just affect the physical body, it impacts the relationship between the user and the people around them. It is a family disease that spreads to everyone involved. For people in recovery, relationships are important on the road to sobriety. The first couple of months after rehabilitation are the most difficult, with 72.6% of patients relapsing within the first 90 days. That's a high number, 72.6%. So if you relapse in your early stage of addiction, don't feel that you are alone. There are many of us out here. Having a support system can help keep a patient sober and accountable. Unfortunately, addiction can break down relationships that are needed for recovery. Either through physical or mental means, addiction causes a person to behave in ways that aren't typical of their character. That is so true. It's also known as a mind-altering substance, right? And so rebuilding relationships is just one part of rehabilitation. Some steps can be taken to go about fixing relationships the correct and healthy way. So we're going to find out what are these steps that this article make mention of. And so first topic, how addiction affects relationships. I'm glad you asked. So the article reads and it says, when suffering from addiction, the personality can also change. It can turn negative and not reflect the user's true feelings. At the beginning of addiction, the changes in behavior are subtle but can rapidly escalate. Addicts are good at lying and saying that this change is an isolated incident. So I'll be the first to admit, when I was in my active stage of addiction, that was the norm, right? Oh, it ain't me, I'm good, I ain't high, woo, woo. And so once in a cycle of addiction, it is hard to get out of it. An addict is not in complete control of what they say or do. The substance makes them completely reliant on it and not consider the people around them. Wow. So true. So that affects a lot of relationships, whether it be your significant other, whether it be your siblings, whether it be your parents. And so just keep in mind that when you see someone who's really under the influence, that they are not, as the article mentioned, they are not in their true character. They are based upon their behavior, based upon a lot of substance abuse, mind-altering substance. And so the next one we want to talk about, you want to read? Okay, great.
Common relationships affected by addiction. The main relationships affected are the ones that are built before addiction. This includes family, friends, coworkers, and significant others. If a person could see how substance abuse has affected the person they love, then they are more inclined to place blame or harbor resentment. Parents' reactions to addiction can greatly affect a patient's recovery. They can be very understanding and willing to help, or bitter.
I better silence my phone as well.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Parents' reactions to addiction can greatly affect the patient's recovery. They can be very understanding and willing to help, or bitter that the person they raised now relies on substances. Not only are the interactions between people impacted, but others' mental health can also be affected, especially those who are close to the user when they are at the height of their addiction. A study found that a woman in a relationship with an alcoholic that women in a relationship with an alcoholic were more likely to develop mood and anxiety disorders. Unfortunately, people affected by someone else's addiction may develop some form of PTSD that needs to be addressed separately.
Wow. Ain't that something? People who not in active addiction, but in a relationship can have PTSD.
Correct, because the people that are the addicts are called, or when they're not in the norm,
Yeah.
their behavior towards that individual is stressful, and
Mhm.
some things may happen, any type of abuse, verbal or
That's
anything,
right.
and that causes them to have PTSD. I know
Mhm.
my cousins had a stepfather who was alcoholic.
Okay.
They would go to bed at night and they were petrified because they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Walking on eggshells.
he would come home drunk. They, try to keep him out of the bedroom because he would be stumbling and,
Yeah.
and all that. So,
Mhm. I never looked at it from that perspective. I always looked at it from the perspective of the actual user having PTSD. That's why most people convert or revert to or utilize drugs as an outlet. But people who are close related in some type of way or in a relationship can also be affected with PTSD.
I know as a mother, when my son was going through active addiction, at first I was like trying so hard to help him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't helping. If anything, I probably was enabling him to do more, not knowing and understanding addiction at all. And then towards the end, it's the same bitter. I was definitely bitter, and I was showing him tough love. I figured if I say you don't do this anymore, or get out until you can get clean or whatever, then he would stop.
Mhm.
But it wasn't that simple. To me, it was like, that's a simple choice. You don't want to be homeless, you don't want to be out in the streets, then you're going to stop doing the things that you're doing now.
Mhm.
But it wasn't. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
quite understand it.
Yeah.
And then, like, once my son had passed, there's many nights that I was up waiting for him, making sure, as a mother, you go around your house and you lock the windows, you lock the doors, you make sure everybody's sleeping sound and you cover them up. That's just a role that we probably all do. I know I've always done it. And so, him being out like late or something, I would wait till he comes home and I wouldn't be able to sleep. Many a nights he was out later than he should, maybe all night. And I'm waking up in my mind, whether in my spirit, even if I'm trying to sleep, I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
When he passed, and it sounds kind of gory, I guess, or crazy. It sounds messed up, but when he passed, I remember thinking, I was devastated, don't get me wrong, but I could breathe. I could breathe because I wasn't worried about, am I going to get that call? Or, where is he at? Like, if something happening to him, I didn't have those worries. But I knew it was a finality of that I would never see him again. It was
a
different.
different type of worry, because when you're out there, you're like, oh my gosh, they're out there in the snow, it's the rain, it's the cold, are they eating?
Anxiety.
It's the anxiety,
He's gonna pass away
right?
and nobody find him, like stuff like that.
And then
all
when
that.
they pass away, you still have, it's a different type of grief and pain that never goes away. But it's like, oh, I can maybe get to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
But you never know, like in the middle of the night, you hear that ding or you read something and your tears just start.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's got to be really, really hard on mothers and parents, anyone that's close to a loved one who's going through something and experience with his experience. So, well, my heart goes out to you, and we're gonna get through it somehow. And let's see what the next topic tells us. All right, and so the next topic going to address, what is it?
How are these relationships affected?
Okay.
Addiction can lead to changes in behavior that can create trust issues and fear. These issues can lead to guilt later in life that needs to be addressed in rehabilitation. There are behavioral changes not just during addiction, but also during withdrawal, rehabilitation, recovery, and sobriety. A person's routine and habits may also change while going through these steps. These parts of recovery need to be addressed separately and dealt with differently for each individual. Loved ones may also excuse their user's behavior. A codependent lifestyle could be built where caregiver enables the addiction or ruins their own life trying to fix the addict. That's so true. Some families members may distance themselves from a person to avoid further hurt. Neither of these actions can support a person going through addiction. Relationships can be affected by the person not going through addiction. Family members may believe that the best method to help someone is through tough love approach and not offer support from the beginning. Other family members will try to help. These conflicting beliefs may cause strife in a household and lead to toxic environment. Turmoil in a family will lead an addict to lean heavier on substance abuse as they feel to blame for the argument. When substance abuse gets consuming, then issues with the law can happen. Commonly, this is through the buying of illegal substances, stealing, abuse, or destruction of property.
Wow.
You know, when you're in a situation where you have a loved one, like my son, who's in active addiction, you know, you want to help them so bad. You've tried to help them, you tried to get them in rehab, you went through all these emotions back and forth, they can sign themselves out, then you're trying desperately to look for them, and then you try tough love.
Yeah.
Tough love is really hard to do because you have that mother instinct. And when you do tough love and something happens, you have that guilt. And that guilt is so hard to get out from.
Yeah.
So, should I sit over here? Or
You sit anywhere.
keep
So
sitting?
all those things that they just talked about
Yes.
are so true from somebody who is watching the individual go through
Yeah.
the addiction. You know, you try to help, okay, you don't give them money. You learn not to give them money, so you take them food. They may eat it, they may sell it. My son in situations that I have been told, he would sit up all night when somebody, there was a female, he would protect them from being either raped, or he would try to get them to detox. He was the protector. He would sell certain things so he could get them down a little bit, you know, so they wouldn't
Be too far gone.
too far gone. And a lot of those individuals are working today, but my son's not.
So he was like an angel in disguise.
Yep.
You know, helping others, even though he knows he needed help, but he had a heart for people. Yeah,
I think that's what my son lost himself trying to help others.
trying to help others. Yeah, and a lot of people find themselves caught up trying to help others or appease others, you know.
He had more respect for someone else than himself. That self-love
Yeah.
he didn't have.
Yeah. People will, you know, you meet people who will give you the shirt off their back, you know, just when they don't have much themselves, and they just like pour out and give it to you.
My son would call me at work and say, "Mom, don't be mad, but there was this guy and he's homeless and he needed
Exactly.
to get it back. So I brought him home while you're at work and allowed him to get it back. But I cleaned out the ring in the tub. I'm like, what? No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, loving people.
Like, no, why are you doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My son would go in he went into the river when somebody else was thrown over in the dead of winter to get somebody out,
Yeah.
and then gave his coat,
So that,
and he went without.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
Wow.
yeah, the stories that I hear from individuals who have met him on the streets, he knew no stranger.
right.
If there was an elderly individual and their car was broke down, he would help them.
Yeah.
He would carry groceries in for them.
Yeah, and that's something I believe, when people are raised in that type of mannerism, say, wow, if someone need to hold a door for
Mhm.
someone. I remember when we used to do stuff and we see elderly people coming into the building, we would put it away.
Mhm.
Out of respect.
Yes.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
they do that.
I would get
different.
so upset with him. I'd get him new clothes, underwear, socks. Hey, Trav, where's all your stuff? Oh, I gave it to somebody else. I said, you have holes in your socks. You have new pair. I didn't need them.
Big heart, loving people. Wow. And that's a lot of stuff people don't really hear, the kindness of people, even though they're in,
And
we're
their
being,
own addiction,
on
their
our
own
addiction.
struggles.
we still have compassion for other people.
Mhm.
You want to share a little something? Well,
Yeah, I jumping in here, just hearing a little
Introduce
bit.
yourself, but first name only.
William,
yeah.
hearing what I'm hearing, in the short time I've been here, it reminds me of a person that was real dear to me, a little bit older than me, and when I was younger, a lady, she would always, because the younger crowd was more or less judgmental, more judgmental of everything, just not, more judgmental in general. She something that stuck with me all my life. She always would say, "A rose is still a rose," and I'm like, "What?" Like it didn't click until like years later, because you would see broken people, people in addiction, people struggling, however, and you might look at them as different.
Yeah.
But she would always say, "A rose is still a rose," or it'll be like somebody that used to be something that's like a shell of their former self.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing what I'm hearing, people, I think people are who they are, like at their core,
Yeah.
with addiction
Mm-hmm.
or not.
Yeah.
So if you have, like you guys said, your son's so selfless, but that's just who they are with or without the addiction.
The inner beauty of them
That's who they
stood
are,
out more so than.
bottom of their soul, and the addiction never affected that at their core.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a rose is still a rose, no matter what.
That's
When
right.
I was young, I'm gonna say this real quick. I know we always get off topic.
No. This is cool. This is
But the
relatable.
thing is, I went through when I was like 13, and it stood out to me, and I'll never forget it. They had taken a rose. It was a really pretty long stem rose, and they said, pass it around. There was a whole big group of like 30 people. Pass it around, smell it, touch it, feel it, touch the thorns. Do whatever you want to this rose as it goes around. It went around, and as it started, it was beautiful. And when it came back, there was pieces off of it. It was the thorn ripped off, the stem was broken, and he said, you see, this is what happens with the world, with life. This is what happens to different people. Different people take different roads and stuff, but it still remains a rose in the end.
Wow, yeah.
Mhm.
And that reminds me of that, because it's the truth. It was like that always stuck with me, because I'm like, they were talking more on the lines of other things, like girls, like it was all group of girls,
Yeah,
like how you can be touched and things can happen in life, but in the end, you still are a rose.
You can't take that away from you.
Yeah.
You're still a human
You're
being.
still that human being inside. You're still that rose.
In my experience of that exchange, it was never explained, but the person, I'm sure, was referring to it as in a feminine sense.
Mhm.
But like I said, this was like when I was like a teenager, maybe 20, in my 20s, so like I said, it always stuck with me to where I can apply that to like almost anything,
Yeah.
especially people that's affected by addiction and drugs.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because a lot of times, I'm glad that we're having this discussion because when we was in the CHW course, me and Will was in the same class, and they talked on ACEs, early childhood experiences. Let's get it right, Greg. And so, but it goes back to say we may see in this field of meeting people, we may see them one way, but we don't know the root cause of how a person became the way they are. And we need to dig a little deeper and further. You know, like you said, a rose is still a rose. You know, these are people who, belong, regardless of how people may try to cast someone away, but they still belong to someone, to a community, to a family, to a loved one.
And, individuals deal with different things differently. You can have, I'm just going to use that as an example, you can have somebody who was a young girl who was raped, with another girl that was raped. One can handle it better and hide it and move on. The other one cannot emotionally do it because she's not strong enough. It's that chemical imbalance, and it's how
Or one can handle it and you think that they're handling it and they're stronger, and then it affects them later.
they
Trauma.
don't, right, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of different things.
Yeah.
So it's
Coping.
the same thing with
Yeah.
with addiction. It's that process that you have to go through.
Things that we need to put in place. And one of them is we're going to talk about, remember, this is a family discussion. We're dealing with family who are affected or by drugs, or families who are dealing with a loved one who dealing with some type of substance abuse, and how we can heal, whether it's through the rehabilitation process or through recovery. And so the next topic we want to go on and deal with damaging behaviors, right? And so, well, I'm not sure if you want to read any, but if not, I'll read this.
Sure, I haven't read.
You want to read something?
But I'll read, sure.
All right, go.
Called damaging behavior. Behavior changes in addicts are commonly found to be negative and lead to harmful actions. These behaviors include lying, saying hurtful things, and being absent from important events. Actions can escalate to stealing, being unfaithful, and violence. While addiction can cause a person to act differently, it is not an excuse for their behavior. Addicts can use manipulative behavior on loved ones to get resources to fuel their addiction. Substances can hinder a person's ability to feel empathy or an understanding of consequences. The drug or alcohol of choice becomes an all-consuming thought in the addict's head.
Yeah. And so I know when I was in active addiction, I used to use this phrase, and quite some of my friends used to use the phrase that cocaine that I was using was my girlfriend type, because I turned to that as a comfort, not as a physical relationship, but that was my norm because that's what it made me attached to, more so than having a relationship. I didn't really get into a relationship until my later years, and I'm still trying to how to work through a relationship. While some people they experience relationships with a significant other, and they know how to blossom in that relationship.
It's because they dealt with different relationships and learned as they went, but you were focused elsewhere, so now you're starting off and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and now I'm making all these mistakes, but I'm learning on the go.
Now, my son didn't like to socialize. He never felt included. He always felt like an outsider.
Yeah.
And the functions and stuff, oh, you might as well forget it. We would have Christmas Eve or whatever, he'd be off to himself. And this is family. But this went on for, many years, and then the addiction just made it kind of worse. Isolated more, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
He only felt normal when he was out on the streets, he said.
Yeah. And there's something about drugs it gives you that false sense of comfort.
Mhm.
Or the community accepts you too. The
Yeah.
community
Yeah,
of
that
the
community.
addicts,
Yeah,
that
Accept you.
accepts you just the way you are,
Mhm.
whatever it is, and they do look out for each other in a way. I learned that
They're
from my
very
sister and my son.
Tight knit.
yeah.
But I also was told too that part of your high through addiction is the days going towards to get the drug of your
Yeah.
choice. Like that's the beginning of the high. It's not so much the drugs, it's the euphoria of setting up to get it and
The
taking
excitement.
advantage. Yes, it's like of taking over and getting
The thrill.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, the thrill of.
I was told that by a
yeah.
couple people. I'm like, wow, really?
Yeah, and me and someone were just having that discussion, and where some people, just by knowing that they, like you just said, or the smell of it, give a person that false sense of, wow, I'm gonna have a good time.
Mhm.
But it's
Something
really,
they were looking forward to.
yeah, to deal with whatever, situation or that we may be facing with, where we didn't feel like facing it head on. I probably just got into an argument with somebody. I could have just was on the job and got into an argument with my supervisor. And I'm saying, oh man, it stressed me out. Let me go get a joint of marijuana. Let me go get a
Mhm.
drink. And that was a false sense of relief, because once I came down the next day, I
It's
still
there.
had the same problem. So I had to learn to deal with things more head up and not be so much confrontational. Because a lot of times, I don't know if I had an anger issue, but being confrontational led to a lot of bad
It was
experiences.
excuses, though.
Mhm.
Huh?
It was excuses.
There you go.
My
Not
son
taking
couldn't deal with
responsibility.
conflicts. He
But the
couldn't deal
thing
with
is, like, if
conflicts
you
or
set
anything
up
like that.
these, if you're confrontational,
Yeah.
maybe without even recognizing it consciously,
Mhm.
you have an argument with somebody, you have a everyday excuse to go get high.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, don't deal with it.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Who cares? Like
Yeah.
they
It was
get on
their
my nerves.
fault.
Yeah, it was their fault.
Yeah, it's
So
their
you-
fault.
that's
It
what
wasn't
I'm
my
saying.
fault.
And you might not even connected the dots, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
when you sit down and analyze, you can.
You gotta take blame. I had to learn and say, well, you know what? It takes two to tango. If you wouldn't have fed into it,
It's hard for anybody in any situation to take blame.
Yeah.
And then it has to be worse for somebody that is an addict.
When you don't have
Yes,
that type of mindset.
exactly.
Mhm.
I wanted to add something.
Jump right on in.
In my experience, my personal experience, it was, not only the high or drunkenness, it was, like you said, the thrill of going to get it.
Mhm.
Not actually just like linear going to go get it, but the lifestyle surrounding it. Especially when I was young and started drinking, every day was a party.
Mhm.
It was fun. It's like you woke up that day and you're like, what are we going to do today? We're going to go get drunk, and then whatever happens, and it's going to be so much fun.
Mhm.
And it wasn't the actual taste of the liquor, of the alcohol. It wasn't the actual,
Thrill.
it wasn't
Activity.
the environment.
Mhm.
But as you get older, and as I got older, I'm still drinking, doing the same things, but it wasn't as fun. And it's like, you're chasing something that you're never going to get, because we're living in amongst different people. Things change, society changed in general, but your mind is like trapped when it was a thrill.
People,
So
places, and things.
yeah, so you're turning it up a notch, and you're adding more alcohol, you're adding more drugs up to to heighten that experience that doesn't exist.
Mhm. Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
And
Yes.
it's like man, it used to be fun, and it's like you're chasing that what was fun.
No.
Somebody tried to explain to me one time, and it was a gentleman who was alcoholic. He's been in recovery for like over 20 some years.
Mhm.
And he was trying to explain to me about some types of addiction. He goes, okay, Sherry, he goes, you have 3 sodas. He goes, one's Dr. Pepper, one's Coke, and one's Pepsi. He goes, what's your favorite? I said, Dr. Pepper. He goes, okay. He goes, you drink Dr. Pepper every single day. He says, now that the distributor gets rid of that Dr. Pepper, which one are you going to go to next? I said, Pepsi. And he kept going. He goes, in each one of them, you're making a choice. He goes, from Dr. Pepper, went to Pepsi, it was harder. He goes, it's like a drug. He goes, when from Pepsi, you got to that Coke, and that's the hardest drug, to how you're going to get back.
Yeah. Tolerance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, and that's what happens. He goes, that's what happened to your son. He got a prescription drug because he went to the doctors. When they turn 18, you don't have to say what prescriptions they get.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him gabapentin.
Yeah.
So when gabapentin didn't work, he had to have something else.
Oh.
So it kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. He goes, that's the thing that I'm trying to show you for these drinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I would say milk, water, and soda
But he was,
as liquid.
well,
I'm just saying, that's what I would say. I would say milk, water, and
Yes.
soda.
Yeah. Well.
And they all are satisfying to drink to quench the thirst, but they're all totally different.
Yeah.
I'm saying if I was to use that analogy.
Addiction is
Not
addiction.
that.
Yeah.
I see that in my little kids, my 6-year-old, soon to be 6-year-old. She, I'm not a soda drinker, and I used to be, of course, but it's like, as I got older, trying to choose more healthy, make healthier choices. Like, I won't even buy soda. If I do, it might be ginger ale. But anyway, her mom, all she drinks is soda.
Mm.
That's all she drinks. So, of course,
Diet, though, there's no sugar in it. That's
yeah, but there's still,
when
Yeah.
I offer my daughter like juice, water, water, no,
I'm like,
that's out.
it's funny because my granddaughter, my son always told her she only has milk or water. We go anywhere, she's asking for water. She's never had one sip of soda.
See,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
my my daughter's mom, she's not
Almost
She's
like my
not.
niece.
She
She
doesn't
always
even care
drunk
about it.
apple juice. She never
Nope.
drunk milk.
I try to entice her so,
Yeah.
like drink what daddy drinking. See, daddy drink is good.
Yeah. And so we're doing great, and so we're gonna finish up a little bit more reading. Someone's on?
Yep.
All right, and so glad that you can join us. And so this conversation, the title of it is Step-by-Step Guide to Rebuild Relationships During Rehabilitation and Recovery. This is our family support group, and tonight we have been discussing about different aspects of how our loved ones has been affected and how we as members of our family unit has been affected and how we dealt with different scenarios. And so this article has been very informative and letting us know in which ways that we can look at it from a different perspective. So the last part we're going to read before we end, and I'll finish it off, and that is how to reconnect and rebuild relationships and rehabilitation. All right. And so once again, you can go online and retrieve this article. It's by abbeycarefoundation.com. And so how to reconnect and rebuild relationships and rehabilitation. Most relationships can be fixed with perseverance and a genuine want to rebuild. Relationships that were damaged through addiction may have led to PTSD on both sides. When this has happened, it is important to start the rebuilding process on neutral ground. This neutral ground can be the rehabilitation center, a therapist's office, or even a public area like a park or cafe. All right, and so that's going to do it for this week. It's been fun. Join us next Thursday at 5:30, and we will finish up on some more very interesting topics.
Thursday or Tuesday?
Tuesday. Thank you, ladies.
No problem.
See, it's always good to have support
Like,
and
you invite me
recovery
on
support
Thursdays.
group. All right, until next time, take care, everybody.
Bye.